is some kind of animal, cannibal.
What just happened to her?
It's metaphor. Let it happen. You gotta have a best friend. You gotta have a bestie. That's what this is about.
A ride or die bestie. Welcome back to the Let Us In podcast. Today we're talking about cannibals. I'm Justine, aka JustineUFF.
I'm Crystal, aka Creepin It Spooky.
I'm Emma, aka Emma of the Impact, animal, cannibal. To begin this episode, we treated our live audience to watching Possibly in Michigan, which I always have fun watching. Justine, you watched it for the first time. What were your thoughts on it?
I thought it was fantastic. It is bonkers in a really fun way. And everything's super catchy. The sound is really popular, of course, on TikTok, which is why it's because it's catchy. It's super catchy and creepy. I don't know. I had a good time watching it. It was fun.
Yeah.
Crystal, did you know it from TikTok?
No, I had actually heard of it a couple years ago, and I only revisited it just for this episode. And I was like, I forgot how much of a bop this is.
Is it like
need to
from like
listen
creepy
now.
internet stuff?
Yeah, just like I've always been into watching like horror shorts, and it just popped up one day like years ago. It's from I think it's from like the early 80s. It's been around for a long time.
That's what it looked like. It said something like 87 or something.
It's from the 80s. Definitely 1000%.
Yeah.
So our episode
Yeah,
today is on
83.
cannibals. So we just go into Possibly in Michigan because we did do that live watch. My theory, and we're going to go into
Join our Twitch. So join our Twitch, subscribe to our
Mhm.
Twitch so you guys can catch these filmings live when we do fun stuff like watch shorts together. It's great. It's great.
It's great. We should do it again. Oh my god.
Carla.
So we're going to get into a little bit of a generalization about cannibal films and then about the particular ones we watch for this episode. With Possibly in Michigan, short film, you can watch it on YouTube for free. I think Arthur, the original masked man, I think he's a representation of the cannibalistic urges that the girls have because she's like, remember when I kissed that guy who ate his women friends? It's like she met a cannibal at one point, assuming this is me assuming a lot because the short doesn't tell us that maybe she killed him in self defense or what have you. And now she has this cannibalistic urge, her and her friend, and that's what I think Arthur, the man in the face mask, represents. And I think the other man that we saw was just one of those just shitty men that is just a violent man that they meet all
I
the
think they're
time
good
and they
for
kill.
hers. Yeah,
They're good for hers.
Yeah, because like you could tell, like they went out to the mall to seek a predator, lured him back, made sure he was a predator, and then killed him.
Like, so I would be number 7. Okay, done.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah, and I think Arthur is. I think you're right. I think Arthur is like their
Mascot.
maybe
Not real, but he's there. But he's metaphoric. Yeah.
Yeah, he feels like their shadow of what they're doing, their urges, their yeah, he's cool. He's just big old mouth hanging out like
He's shy. Arthur seems a little shy.
Yeah.
Arthur's a little shy. I love women killing men and eating men in movies. Don't get me wrong. It's like that trending sound. What is it? I don't condone murder, but I condone women with power. Yeah. I think who said that? Like Lady Gaga or something like that. It's a cathartic thing. So it's a cute little short. It's fun. It's a bop of a short in its own. It has written by a female director. And it bats back in the 80s when it wasn't as easy to just like film something on your iPhone. So there's a lot of props to that. There was a whole article about her response to it being a popular trending sound on TikTok. Those that are on TikTok would know it as the she put her poodle in a microwave oven. That one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To eat it.
He did. And did you guys want me to get into my categories? Or should we save that for later?
No, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
It's quick. So I typically usually do a history or an every. So one of the first cannibalistic, really, this is what the movie's about. Movies is The Man from Deep River, which I actually haven't seen from 1970, and that kind of steamrolled into what are called the Mondo films, like Cannibal Ferox. It's definitely Diodatos, which is an edgelord classic, Cannibal Holocaust. I do want to talk about Cannibal Holocaust a little bit, but I'll finish the category part of this. It's interesting how there's a classist divide with cannibal movies. There's the poor slash backwoods, back desert films, like a lot of the Wrong Turn movies, A Texas Chainsaw
Hills Have
Massacre, The
Eyes.
Hills Have Eyes, Spider Baby, Auntie Lee's Meat Pies, Hotel Hell. There's dozens. There's just a lot where it's just the idea that you're so inbred and backwoods that
Isolated somewhat.
isolated, yes,
Yeah.
is an important factor, that you just start eating people, or it's a family tradition of sorts. And then, of
Yeah.
course, when it comes to my previous category of the Mondo films, it's usually documentary crew going into some form of tribe where it's part of their ritual. And also, Cannibal Holocaust, considered the first, Crystal, are you ready? Found footage film, which you probably already know, but I just like to.
Yeah.
But then on the other side of the classism with the poor backwoods cannibals are the rich elite. It's like the idea of Nietzsche's Ubermensch, which is why I like when Ravenous quoted Nietzsche in the beginning of the film, like as a Nietzsche quote. And then a non's quote that's a bit more like casual is the idea of the Ubermensch, that which heavily plays on a lot of movies about murder. Alfred Hitchcock's Rope, which is not about cannibalism, about murder, but the idea that you're so intelligent and above the rest of humanity. There's also two killers that are infamous for this, Leopold and Loeb, that you are able to murder because you're better than everybody else and you can get away with it. So it's something that's available for you to do because you're like just better than everybody. I can think of like
Super
maybe
Predator.
Hannibal, it's the Uber cannibal. And Fresh, I consider to be part of that category, even though we have one character that is in particularly doing the murder and cultivating of the meat. But the fact that he's not just selling the meat of these women, but also personal items to these very highly
And
rich men.
social-
And part of them, he's like selling part of these people. It's like more than just their flesh. It's like a part of them.
Yeah.
We'll get into that. And then there's I only have two more categories, so I'm wrapping it up. Then there's the dark side of society, like the idea that we have this nuclear family or traditional family or Western family with all these ideals and morals, but really there's this dark underbelly. Parents, starring Dennis Quaid, is a great one. I love that one. Flesh Eating Mothers is another one that's fantastic that Crystal and I both watched recently, which we'll be talking about. I fucking
Fresh
love
Meat. Fresh Meat,
Fresh.
that
I
New
haven't
Zealand one.
seen. I haven't
That
seen
would
it,
fit there as well.
but we'll get
Yeah.
into that for sure because that
Yeah.
sounds great. I love New Zealand stuff.
It
And then
opens
there's
up with the spoiler, so I can talk about that one pretty freely. There's no like surprise.
oh no, the surprise. Then there's just ones that are just bonkers comedy. Green Butchers I would put under that, which is one of those staples of Danish horror. I've seen enough Danish horror to
I watched
vouch
that
for
one
me.
today, the best I could.
You didn't like it?
No, I was working and I was watching it, and I have to read the subtitles to watch that because it's not in English. I couldn't follow along half the time, but I love Mads Mikkelsen, so
Isn't it great how like sweaty and bald and he's like just
weird.
nervous? I love when
Not the Mads
actors.
Mikkelsen I love.
That's the thing. I love when actors play against what they're known for, and I love
Yeah.
Mads Mikkelsen. I actually would never have seen that movie if it wasn't for Tor, who's not a horror movie fan, but a
But
big Danish. He's Swedish, but loves
Yeah.
Danish comedy because Swedes don't do comedy the way the Danes do. They do it a little better, from what I've seen. Anyway, Blood Diner, which Justine also watched, an unofficial sequel to another cannibalistic classic of Herschel Gordon Lewis's Take a Drink, Everyone, someone I mention all the time. Blood Feast, bringing Shitar back to life. And then Delicatessen, which is a French post-apocalyptic, but not, it's technically is, but it feels like the not too distant future. It's directed by the same guy that did Amelie, and feels like Amelie if it was about cannibalism.
So quirky and fun, huh?
It is actually a quirky
Manic
and fun
Pixie
movie.
Cannibal.
It is. Well, the cannibal is really not the cute people in the movie. The cute people are the ones that aren't cannibals. And then there's Cannibal the Musical by Trey Parker and Matt Stone, which is South Park guys. And then there's the Untold Story, which is actually just a traditional. It doesn't really feel like under a category, but it doesn't feel particularly unique. So, where did you guys want to start?
What was the first category?
The Mondo, where I
Let's
wanted to
start
talk a
there.
little. Where I wanted to talk a little bit about. This is bringing out the edgelord I truly am. Cannibal Holocaust. Have you guys seen Cannibal Holocaust?
Yes. I just rewatched it
God,
today,
years
actually,
ago.
too.
Oh,
I did
really?
not rewatch it.
Mhm.
Give me your thoughts.
I hate the animal deaths. Just
Yeah,
knowing that they're real. That's
I
the worst
don't
part of
watch
the whole
them.
movie.
They're very rough. We really
Yeah.
see them in detail, the muskrat or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Turtle. I hate the turtle part.
There's also a lot of SA in the film. So a big part of the controversy of Cannibal Holocaust is that it's about the exploitation of documentary and also showing it's a particular incident that was in Italy, but basically any instance where you can think of where they're just showing a lot of violence of current events on the news. But it is from
Mhm.
an exploitation film director, and he didn't necessarily treat his actors terribly well, which isn't terribly unexpected. It
None of
was
this makes me want to rewatch it again, by the way. This is exactly why I didn't rewatch it. I watched it a long time
Yeah.
ago. I barely remember it. I remember thinking this is like one of those, I watched it, done, one and done. But also one of those films that has so much controversy around it for real world bad things. Not, oh my God, it's so shocking, the depictions of SA. It's the treatment of animals and people and some somewhat xenophobic things that it's tough for me to
well, no, I think it's not xenophobic. On what's his face, Eli Roth's version, which is so like the dumbed down version that misses the point. The thing about Cannibal, oh my god, Cannibal Holocaust
Yeah.
is that these documentary filmmakers go missing. That's how the film's opened. This guy's going into the jungle where they have gone missing. He finds the tapes. He witnesses some horrible things along the way that is part of the tribe's rituals, but I'm not quite sure when that scene happens. When we witness them being the tribe being violent towards a woman of their own tribe, which was the fault of the documentary filmmakers. It was their fault that even happened. But so their fault. So he finds the tapes of these documentary filmmakers who, and in the
Mhm.
tapes, it shows that they violated these people that are just living their life in the jungle and
They're awful to
raped.
them.
They're awful. They rape their women. They just burn their huts for no reason, unprovoked. They just thought it'd be fucking funny. Started burning their homes, and there was just retaliation to the violence that was
I'll say
enacting them. What?
they got what they deserved, honestly.
They totally got the way they deserved,
Yeah.
and that's what it's supposed to. It's supposed to be that way.
Yeah.
And so then the movie becomes our guy that has taken these tapes, watched them, and also beforehand he had also talked to the family members of these documentary filmmakers that and their families are very dismissive. "Oh, who fucking cares what happened to him?" Okay, whoa, weird. Okay,
And before.
maybe it wasn't. Maybe they were very good people. And then then he's showing these tapes to the producers. Basically, the producers are saying, "We can cut this. There's so much like juicy stuff. We can cut this to make it look like the tribes are like really the bad ones and not make our young men and women because it's supposed to take place in New York. This production company and everything, even though it's an Italian film. So it's also showing the greed and corruption of the producers trying to cut something like that, showing any of it, and then
Mhm.
framing the indigenous people of the area to be
As like
violent
bloodthirsty
out of
savages.
nowhere. Yeah, which is not true at all. So that's
Mhm.
what the movie is. So that's why it's actually, despite the animal deaths are bad. They say they used all the animal, but whatever, I don't care. They didn't need to do it. The director said he did it because it would make more sales in China, which apparently is true. I don't know. I don't care. I don't condone it.
No.
And then there's
That also sounds a bit racist.
yeah, it does. So also there are a few SA scenes. One in particular that is very graphic. Not that it's something you can really quantify. They're both upsetting, but the overall film separating exactly who it comes from because he's not a bad person, but he's not a good person. It does have a good message and it does have meaning behind it. Whenever someone mentions it as an edgelord movie, even though I'm not saying it's not shocking, I'm not saying it's not disturbing. It says to me someone hasn't really actually watched it. That's
I
what it
don't
says
think
to
it's
me.
an edgelord movie in the sense that it's an actual. I don't think there are edgelord movies, to be honest. When I say
Serbian film's a total edge. Like, it was made by an edgelord, made edgy.
Finish what I was saying. I'm not saying like there's edgelords who mention movies to be edgelords. And Cannibal Holocaust is one of those movies. Those are the type, that's what I'm saying when I say it's like an edgelord movie. It's just like Serbian film, just like any type of exploitation film, where the minute you talk about how you like horror films or you don't like certain horror films, people are like, oh, have you seen Cannibal Holocaust? Have you seen Serbian film? They're trying to be edgelords. And it's so annoying that I just don't even want to watch those movies.
You could be saying, hey, I like the movie Poltergeist. It's a great movie for these reasons. Someone said, you think that's scary?
You should watch Cannibal Holocaust.
You haven't seen the SA
Yeah.
against the child in the Serbian. Of course, they don't say it that way. They just said, you haven't seen a Serbian film. It shocks me that those
Tell me you haven't seen a Serbian film without telling me you've seen a Serbian
I had.
film.
I watched a Serbian film, and I took not like literally notes.
Actually,
So many notes. I feel almost like compared to most people. This is not a brag. This is
no, but it's true. It's true.
I am a Serbian film fucking expert. Okay,
It's
I
true.
fucking understand that movie.
I've heard more about that movie and Cannibal Holocaust from you than anybody else. And not in an edgelord way, in a way like, I'm going to break down this so that everybody understands what these movies are actually about without trying to shove it in your face. Like, you need to watch it. But I'm going to let you know what's there. What is there besides me saying you haven't seen it? You're actually educational about it. I did rewatch Hills Have Eyes.
The German Shepherds, I have 3 of them. It breaks my heart.
Yeah. That movie's still so good.
Which one did you watch?
The original, yeah.
They're both good,
the
though.
The remake is great. Yeah, the remake is fantastic. The second one...
I don't know if I've even seen. I probably have, but don't remember.
It's not terrible, but it is pretty forgettable. Like, it's got, like, military people. It's like, how are you guys that incompetent and ineffective? Anyways, I didn't get a chance to watch Wrong Turn because it's just nowhere to watch.
It's almost all of the Wrong Turns have cannibals in them, so I think we could almost do a Wrong Turn episode because it's
we totally could, and it's fun.
Yeah.
I like.
And there's one with Matthew Modine in it.
I liked the remake or reboot as well, so I would love to do a Wrong Turn episode. We Are What We Are would fall into this category as well.
What is We Are But We Are is a family movie.
Okay, so there's 2. The original, which is a foreign film, and then there is a reimagining in an English version that is set in like the Bible Belt, and it's much more religiously tied and backwoodsy, but like the way like backwoods Amish or backwoods religious would be, where they
Is it Appalachia or something like that? Appalachia?
Yeah. And they live up in the mountains. Their nearest neighbor they're familiar with, and they have this belief that if they don't eat people according to their religion, that a sickness would come over them. And it turns out that they have prion disease because of eating
What's
people.
that?
That's the disease you get when you're a cannibal.
Well, you get it from bad meat, right? There's certain proteins that get into your body.
Brain or the nervous system, and there's a fungus in it, and they're called prions, and I believe they're in the fungi family, and it's also where you typically will get it from if you're eating like the brains of humans or people who are infected with it already. So this happens a lot with cannibalistic tribes. So this is a hole in the plot a little bit because they have prion disease, and it's possible that they have prion disease because back in the day they ate their own people when they died, and then now years past they still have it, which doesn't
take like 3 years for it to go away or something like that.
And it doesn't make sense if they're actually just killing outsiders and eating them, and they're killing outsiders. There's like a missing daughter who it turns out that they ate, and like so they have prion disease, but they believe in their religion that when they get like the symptoms really bad, that it's because they need to fast and eat somebody, which is really what's causing it. So It's just this lack of understanding and education around what's going on with them. But they're very like patriarchal. When We Are What We Are, I prefer the American remake or reimagining over the original. The original is really good, but it is very different. It doesn't seem the same to me at all in vibe and everything. But the dynamic of the characters in the American remake is so good because you're
Sorry.
following basically two sisters. They're starting their fast with their father, and their mom runs into town, and there's a flood going on in their town. And the mom has an episode from her prion disease and falls backwards, hits her head, and drowns in this like water. And so now these two sisters have new responsibilities that the mom used to have, which gets a little gross at some point with the father. But no actual SA happens, but he definitely kisses the oldest one on the lips a couple of times. So it's implied. Yeah. It's
imagine your
yeah.
dad kissing you on the lip. No, gross.
Yeah. It's very implied, but
No,
it's gross.
no. I'd rather eat human flesh. My dad is dead.
Well,
I mean,
a
that's
lot.
not why, but I'm like, no way. No
It
way.
also has, what's her name? Julie Garner, I think, from
gross. Not her.
From Ozark. Have you
Oh.
seen Ozark? The
Mhm.
blonde who just won I think she just won an Oscar,
Have fun?
a Grammy.
Oh, I thought she just want to have fun.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going with it. She's in it. She's fantastic. I think the acting is just really good. The cinematography, it's a beautiful film. I really like it. So definitely check out We Are What We Are. Both of them. They're great.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a common one that comes up. Texas Chainsaw we're going to do eventually. We don't know when, but we will. We're totally promising. We're going to do no, we definitely are, because I'm gonna make us do a Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise or something of the sort. Definitely something very specific to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is they're cannibals. Which is it's interesting that a lot of the message that, again, take a drink, I'm mentioning Toby Hooper again, has with Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of vegetarianism. That's a big message that he intended to have. So we won't get into it more than that. Spider Baby is similar. Have you guys seen Spider Baby?
No.
Sid Haig in it. It's
you know what? Sid Haig was in another one of these movies that I watched.
Really? Which one?
Bone Tomahawk.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, the Grifters.
Just quickly to wrap up Spider Baby, which I do recommend. It's basically an inbred cannibalistic family kind of movie, but it's worth watching. I do think there might be a Riff Tracks version of it, but don't take that against it. It's fantastic. Hotel Hell. Have you guys seen Hotel Hell?
It was on my list. I didn't get around to it.
Oh, Crystal, I know you'd like it. I think you both would like it. Let me just say about Motel Hell, and then we'll move on. It takes all kind of critters to make Farmer Vincent's fritters. That's all I'll say about that. That is a really good one. It is a lot of fun. It's, if I had to weigh Flesh Eating Mothers against Auntie Lee's Meat Pies, Flesh Eating Mothers over both enjoyable, but Motel Hell is enjoyable. I think you both would like it. I think our audience would like it. It's a fun one.
I really like Bone Tomahawk, but I have a lot of problems with it too that I can't shake. And
that guy's face that I hate. I can't. It's not him even. It's just him in The Conjuring has ruined everything for me that he's ever in.
It also
What's his name?
David Arquette in it also.
David Arquette is also in Ravenous.
Yeah.
He is. That caught me off guard.
Do you guys have any issues with Bone Tomahawk, like around like the Native American?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the
anti-cannibal Holocaust
or like slave servant type.
I have not seen it for a year, so I thought it was like recent enough. Yeah, I do think that, because usually cannibalism within any kind of civilization, it's usually more of a ritualistic thing, whether it's eating the dead as part of that, or if it's eating an enemy. It's not like you're just randomly painting yourself white and just eating everybody, which is what it seems like.
And they
in Bone
made them
Tomahawk.
like otherworldly in Bone Tomahawk too, like they were.
And they're people.
They had like tusks and they had different vocal cords and
Which
stuff.
they also did in Green Inferno with Eli Roth. Come on, dude. Let's you missed it.
Yeah, which turned these Native Americans into beasts. I think the main issue I had with it was with the character played by the guy from Lost, where he talks a lot about how he had to kill a bunch of Native Americans. Like he's killed so many Indians, is what he said. It was really problematic. But they also gave him this redemption arc. Like they made it okay, like why he did those things. Like they kept trying to justify his actions, like revisionist history style. It was really uncomfortable to watch. So we're going to give him a redemption arc. We're going to make it seem like he's some poor him for killing people that didn't need to be killed. Yeah, but I will say the cave scene in Bone Tomahawk when they do
It's
start tearing people up, holy cow.
it's pretty
Yeah,
sick.
it gets
It is
wild.
so good. Like it is good. So, I love like Western horror so much, which is why I love Ravenous.
I felt like everyone in this outpost, Ravenous, which takes place around the Civil War, let's just say, we don't know for sure. Feels like they're all look like
Yeah.
a David Arquette. He's like an addict and a doofus or whatever. Jeffrey Jones, who's a pedo, not in the movie but in real life. So it feels like they're all. It feels like they're
I
all
think that's
supposed
the point. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're all
They're sent to that shitty out.
protecting the Nevadas, which are do they mean the mountains? On pluraling it, and I don't know the area well enough. Is it the Nevadas
It
or
might be,
my
yeah.
history?
It's California. I know that.
And Guy Pearce is the poor man's Ethan Hawke, and he still looks cute though in this
For
movie.
sure.
Crystal, this is your first time watching it for this episode
Mhm.
after we've been mentioning it many episodes. How did you feel?
I think you guys hyped it up a little too much.
Not hype it up. I did not hype it
I
up.
know I'm hyping this up too much. But
Yeah,
I love
you
it.
So
did.
I
I will say Robert Carlyle was my favorite part of the whole thing. I love
He is the
Robert
best part.
Carlyle. Absolutely the best part. I love him.
He is.
But the humor didn't really land for me. I don't know. I might have been in a mood that day. Yeah, I don't know. It was supposed to, I thought it was
don't
supposed to be
think it's
funnier.
particularly humorous.
I heard it was like a dark comedy, like a dark
I would not
Western.
So
You did. I
honest-
saw it online.
a long time
Mm-mm.
ago, and I remembered liking it more. I didn't dislike it while rewatching it today, but
Yeah, it wasn't bad. Didn't
it
blow
didn't
me
have
away.
Ethan Hawke in it. It had Guy Pearce instead. That's all they could get.
I like this movie. I think it's fantastic. I think it
I'm
has enough-
joking. I like Guy Pearce.
I think it has enough wacky moments to where it feels you feel like you're watching a bunch of crazy people and outcasts, like you said, Emma. And when you have a big personality like Robert Carlyle on screen, if you don't have a good like those cutscenes with the meat in the intro and like the big red title card, those are things that I love when I see film. There's clearly a message being sent through this, but I also think that they treated the Donner Party lore and the Skinwalker lore. I believe it's Skinwalker or Wendigo lore. I'm not sure which one they're trying to imply. Maybe they're trying to cover both. But the idea that you gain some sort of superpower or superhumanness from consuming other humans to give it like a draw, like why you would do that, not just in times of desperation, but why it becomes addictive. I think it's just a cool way to talk about like violence against men, like just violence against humans, your own fellow man.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you guys for joining us for part 1. We're being light-footed, so we will do a part 2 for cannibalism in time for Thanksgiving, which is what we're doing this for, because food, big meals, people, cannibalism.
Please take the opportunity of this brief intermission to go get a piece of pumpkin pie. We will be starting our second helping of Cannibals shortly.
This is the first time that we have done an episode in 2 parts because we are human beings, animal cannibals. So I hope you stay for our modest proposal on the Lettuce podcast. So I've been thinking about cannibalism. I've been thinking about cannibalism a lot lately, and that's true for our episode. And there's an interesting dichotomy that happens between the films. I did a little digging, just a little on the surface, digging about the history of cannibalism or history. So
Should we talk about my unintentional cannibalism?
let's talk about Justine's unintentional cannibalism.
So, my name is Justine, and I am a cannibal.
Does it count if it's yourself?
It's not myself.
Oh,
Okay, so I had dental bone grafting done this last week. And it's the second time I've done this, but it was the first time that Cannibal was on the mind. So I had a really cool dental surgeon, a periodontist, who was in there doing his thing. And they have these consent forms before you do your surgery. And part of it says it's informing you about what's about to happen, what the surgery is, yada. And in there it talks about the bone grafting process and how they insert basically bone grafts, which are bone that has been medically, like surgically sterilized and stuff, but it is mostly going to either be human, plant, or animal. So, out of curiosity, because again, cannibalism was on the mind, I asked my doctor, I said, hey, so what did I get? Animal, plant, human. And he
but
said,
do you
"Well, it's
ingest
cadaver.
cadaver?
It's cadaver."
So do you
Well,
ingest part of it? Is that
so
part of
here's the
like
next part. He goes over the surgery before he does it. He explains, yeah, this is human cadaver. Is that going to be a problem? It's donated, like organs are donated in the same capacity, but it is cleaned and sterilized medically and it is safe for your
Yeah, I
body.
figured it's not just
Oh,
dug up
yeah,
and they
this
just
is like
slap it on there.
scoop it out and shove it in. I'm like, no, I was just curious because it's on the consent. And he said, okay, so for after the surgery, there's going to possibly be some grittiness, kind of like a sand texture when you eat for the first couple days.
And that's the
That is
corpse.
just some of the bone graft material
That's just some of the
that comes
corpse that's
out in
coming
the
into your mouth.
stitches. Yeah. And so also at the end, like they really pack it in and then they stitch over your gums again, like where it was. So he like there I have that little bib thing on and I look down and there's all sorts of it all over the place.
All
And
that
it
corpse
does
just all
fall
over
in
your bibs.
mouth and they're doing it in your mouth. Like of course you're swallowing and stuff. And so at the end he's like, do you have any questions after we were done? And I'm like, all of this is that cadaver bone. He's yeah, and I'm like, so some of it I swallowed. And he's yeah, and I'm like, so am I a cannibal? I have never had anybody ever ask me that question, but yes, but not the like frowned upon type because it's unintentional. Like,
Yeah, it's not intentional,
yeah.
unintentional. But
I'm
I asked if
intentional
I could have my
cannibal.
wisdom teeth, and they did not give them to me, and they acted like that was weird. They're my teeth. What do they think I'm
Actually, I
gonna
think
do
that's
with them?
illegal.
Swallow
I
them?
think
They
they
got.
give it to you.
They didn't. They
Mm-mm.
didn't.
Yeah, I
They
think
didn't.
they're required by law to give you your body parts if you ask for them.
I asked. I'm like, can I have my wisdom teeth when you take them out?
I'm just
And they
kidding.
did not. And they acted really weird about it. It was a young lady, so maybe she was like not used to. I don't know. I like it was. I'm not gonna try and fake my own death. I didn't say that, but I'm like, what do you think I'm gonna do with it? I don't know. They're my teeth. I want my teeth. I don't know. I
Yeah.
want.
I think
They
if it's
got.
only for religious purposes, they have to give it to you because you have to be buried like whole.
You own your body. It's part of body autonomy law. I
What,
think
what's
that
the
there's
like?
actually a court case that makes it what's that word where it makes it it's a
I
law
don't.
term where
I don't
it
know
sets
law
the
terms.
precedent.
They looked at us as if we would
Yeah, that's
know.
what it was. It's precedent. So there was
Mm.
a case where someone sued for their bodily, like their body parts for an amputation because they wanted their parts. It's theirs. It's their body. So
Hmm.
they sued for it, and I think it set the precedent that for bodily autonomy that you own your own body. You're not
I
forced
don't want my wisdom teeth that
for
bad.
any of
That's a
that.
lot of work.
Interesting.
But this does fit into some of the cannibalism history that I did research.
Oh.
And
Yeah, I joked that I felt a lot of power after that.
to your dentist.
No.
Oh,
To Discord. To Discord. We had this conversation in our Discord, by the way. It might have happened in Slasher chat, so if you're not a patron, you might not have seen it. I don't know, but it might have done it in Slasher chat.
I still need to look into.
you
what
ask as
plants
if I'm
have
going to
bones.
remember. What plants have bones?
Well, apparently.
Oh,
They can make the grafting.
no one wants to hear my
material,
cannibal
so.
history here. No one wants to hear my
I'm
history
sorry.
of cannibals.
I'm
Oh my
a
god.
cannibal, so I shouldn't want to know the history of me.
Okay, so basically, it all starts with us white people colonizers, obviously, going to different places, and Columbus is mentioned here and there. Maybe they did encounter or hear rumor of people eating other people in certain rituals, but generally, the idea of cannibalism was just used against indigenous people of different places to make them the other, to villainize them. whether it was actually true or not. Most of the time,
Yeah.
not. And then, a few, not even 100 years later, it became a trend with Europeans that they would ground the dust. They would dig up Egyptian mummies, other people's culture, other people's bodies, and they would ground up the mummy dust and use it as like a cure all medical thing. And people knew it was people. Like it wasn't like
Hmm.
it's so hypocritical and weird. And there's also some other cultures that did do some stuff like that where they make it medicinal. Like
Mhm.
it's like we separate. I was a vegan for 8 years, but now I eat everything omnivore, but it's how we separate everything from what it actually is. And that's a big part of what the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is about. But we're not getting into Texas Chainsaw Massacre just yet. But it's interesting to me that we like to think of ourselves as like better than other animals because we're animals too. We're a species that does not thrive in anarchism, but we like to think we're above it all. And certain religions think that, oh, we have souls and are made in the image of a certain creator, and other animals don't have souls. We're so much better than everybody. In certain times when we're even more repressed, even more prudish and snooty, especially in the Victorian era, when that was when Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was written, and that's when Sweeney Todd takes place.
I love Sweeney Todd. So, another funny story. My dad took me to see Sweeney Todd in theater, like to go see the musical, and I don't think he knew what Sweeney Todd was. It was, yeah, in theater. Like it was one of the first musicals I had ever seen in person performed.
Okay, since we're
Um,
like the same age, you must have been like 21, 22, I
no, I
think.
was a child.
Oh,
Theater, not like movie theater. Like we saw it, a
look at me
performance
being
of
like
Sweeney
actually
Todd
just
Like a
seeing
live.
in
like
like
your
a live
memory is
action
wrong. Your memory of
musical
your life
theater.
is incorrect, actually.
Yeah.
Look at me
But it
being
was
an edge
so
lord.
cool. Like the way that they did like the blood squirting and stuff, because he's like slitting arteries, right? So they had like a string tied to your finger. That's how they did it. And the actor would go to slit his throat and would grab the string behind their neck and just pull it like this. And this red cloth would come across and he would just throw it. So it like made this like with a cloth, and it was just so cool. I don't know. I just thought it was really neat how they perform that on live stage, because how would you perform that where you gotta have blood spurting, but the cleanup between scenes would be a nightmare. So they
Yeah.
use a cloth that they would just pull across the throat
What did your
and like
dad
kind of
think?
float away. My dad was like the whole time, like, but it was also it's a really peppy show. So
Taylor
like
Sweeney Todd. It begins when they, spoilers in the beginning of the stage play, they arise from coffins. My dad played Sweeney Todd on stage. I never saw him
oh,
do it though,
shut up. That's
unfortunately.
so great.
Yeah, I never got to see that performance, unfortunately, but he did until he had trouble with the stairs eventually. But yeah, and he showed me the live on TV, like it was on, so I didn't get to see it. I've
Yeah.
never seen it live like you have. He showed me the original with Angela Lansbury,
Oh yeah,
and
you got that in the Discord, I think.
I love Angela Lansbury as Mrs.
Yeah.
Lovett. It's an interesting story because when I was going through my categories of cannibalism, of the rich elite thinking this Nietzsche Ubermensch, like we're above people, or backwoods
Imperfectors.
people, like we're inbred and we just eat people and that's what we do, or the stories where it's about an insatiable hunger, or the
Right.
stories where it's about containing someone's essence. Sweeney Todd doesn't fit into any of those categories for me, because Sweeney Todd to me is a story where everybody's a victim pretty much and a perpetrator. And it's basically
Yeah.
where Sweeney Todd is so angry at what's happened to him and his family, and all of humanity is just, especially in particularly London, is garbage. He himself doesn't see himself as a man that deserves redemption, and everybody else also deserves to suffer. The only thing about the movie that was like super unrealistic is how could somebody not have the hots for Alan Rickman? Obviously, I have the hots for Alan.
Uh,
Obviously, I didn't even need to say anything, but that was when my main crush. Oof.
Me too. He makes
That
everything
voice.
better. His acting is just there's something so rich and I don't know, velvety about the way he performs.
The
Whereas
was to diverge away from Sweeney Todd, but my personal, I want to know each one of yours favorite Alan Rickman performance, if you guys have one.
mine's gonna
My
be so
two
stupid.
favorite.
You're gonna hate it, I think.
And my two favorites are Hans Gruber, Sense and Sensibility.
Sense and
Sense and
Sensibility.
Sensibility,
Yeah.
where he's like the older man and he's into Kate Winslet, but he doesn't think that she could be into him, and he's just
He's
tortured
simp, a
in
total
the
simp.
and he's in the rain on a horse,
Oh.
emotionally tortured, and
So-
I just want to ride. And I love Alan Rickman so much. So what?
Galaxy Quest. Oh my god. I
Yeah,
feel
oh,
like
that's a fun movie.
it
Galaxy
is
Quest is
like
a fun
it
movie.
is the epitome of what I love about Alan Rickman is him in that movie. It felt like he was playing Alan Rickman. Like it was so good.
Crystal, do you have a favorite? You don't.
I don't really have a favorite role of his, no.
Even Justine and I are on the same page about the dilfness of. I don't know if he had kids.
Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and yeah, he's such a good baddie. Like him as Hans Gruber and in Robin Hood as Sheriff of Nottingham. First of all, like I would have let him. Nottingham. Right now, we're talking Thanksgiving holiday. Cannibals.
So, Crystal, your thoughts on Sweeney Todd? Movie, story, otherwise?
I don't mind it. I have a really hard time with musicals. I've said this before, but that one I can get by with. I do appreciate a lot of it. I haven't watched it in a long time. I didn't rewatch it for this, but
It's very Tim
that's
Burton-y, too.
it is very
I
Tim Burton.
love
Yeah.
musicals, so that's probably why I love it so much too.
Yeah.
I was in musical theater like as a kid up until I almost went and did that for like profession after high school. I was supposed to go work for the Missoula Children's Theater after I graduated. Like I don't know. I like Sweeney Todd. I think that it has its flaws as far as just a movie goes, but I think it's one of my favorite Tim Burton films just because I think it's so fun. And I think that was probably some of the best use of Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter that I've seen him use.
They worked well off of each other. It's probably not my favorite Johnny Depp Tim Burton collaboration. It's definitely one of the later ones I can tolerate because I hated his Mad Hatter so much, and I hated his Willy Wonka so much. Regardless, I think they both worked well off of each other. I thought Helena Bonham Carter. A lot of people I remember making comments about her singing, but I thought she was fine. I thought she was fine.
I thought she was great.
I thought Owen was good in it. But
yeah, he was fun.
But it is an interesting take on the cannibalism story where it's not necessarily, it's like just a general punishment and a kind of like a good fu to humanity. It's like you're eating yourselves. It is a lot about classism too, I think. The power that Judge Turpin, Alan Rickman's character, has.
When they sentenced the little boy to hang for stealing.
I don't remember that part.
I don't know.
But the idea that revenge might not be so sweet. Did I say it? Yeah, I did. Ooh, I know they were meat pies, but it must have had some sweetness to it.
I loved the whole aspect. Once the cannibalism started, I think that the movie gets a lot better because it gets so ridiculous, but it's also really dark at its center. I mean,
it feels separated though. I feel like we don't really see. It's not a movie where we really see we see people eating the pies, but we don't get like a gross close up, which I think we should have, of people eating the pies.
Once the little boy
Toby
finds out, you get once that happens, it's almost like we were meant to really be exposed and disgusted with him, which is fine. I don't mind it. But
with the song, the Little Priest song, I think it's called Widow.
We know but I mean, supposed to like see it and like really know when he knows. He's really disgusted by it, unless this is a fun movie with him, I guess. But I don't know. I think it's of all the types of cannibalism movies out there, Sweeney Todd's not my favorite type. I prefer the like human desperation cannibalism, the worst of the worst survive type of plot.
Oh no, I like it's like a disease. It's like an unbearable hunger. There's an emptiness in you that can only be satiated by
like Raw.
Like Raw, which we're kind of spoiling it a little bit that way, but not totally. I don't think we should give away the ending. But I wanted to talk about Julia DeCorno.
I do have a question about Raw because I think we'll talk more about Julia. than we
Mhm.
will talk about Raw specifically.
Julia
Did you
DeCorno,
guys
who's the director, for those that don't know.
Yeah, did you guys feel like, and you can cut this out, Emma, and if you don't want to hear spoilers about Raw, don't listen to this because this is my questioning on the interpretation of the film. I feel like the film could have been taken in two different ways. One, that it's like an insatiable hunger for cannibalism, and the other being like they're almost like creatures, like werewolves. And I've taken that film as like they're werewolves. Like,
I took it
I
as
don't
more of
know.
like
Like,
mental illness thing. It's
that
like,
runs in the family.
yeah, that it's an
Mhm.
inherited sort
Yeah, it's
of
inherited.
like hunger, and like it's the older sister that I think the message becomes clearer, and her mental instability and her need
Mhm.
for it, more so than the younger sister who's just figuring out what's going
Yeah,
on, and the
or what
mother
they're
that's dealt with
discovering
it
with.
for so long. That ending where, sorry for those who haven't seen it, where the dad just lifts off his shirt was like, and it wasn't because, oh, they inherited it from the mother. It was just like they found it, they made it a way, a part of, to deal with it. So I read it more as, which I
I
think you could
love.
definitely read it as that they're creatures. I think that, and
Yeah,
that's the
I
beauty
was
of
thinking it was like a
Julia.
cool like interpretation of, and like a modern interpretation of what that could be, or what people might have thought was back in the Middle Ages that created the idea of werewolves. And this is what it looks like in modern times, that we understand it more and we know what it is, I think, and that they lived with it. And that's
Yeah, I
what they're
read it
like
as like
werewolves.
mental illness, and the idea that there's like an insatiable hunger to own somebody, or feel like you've ingested a part of a person. Or I'm not like well versed in mental illnesses besides my own, which bipolar, and I only know my bipolar disorder. But with there's like that book about, what is it, borderline personality disorder. I hate
Mhm.
you, please don't leave me, like that kind of, it related to that kind of feeling for me. And but that's part of what is so beautiful, especially later into Tane, even more so, that Julia DeCorno writes stories that can be interpreted very directly or very metaphorically in different ways, and they all work. All.
What about you, Crystal? What did you think of Raw?
I really liked Raw,
Me too.
like a lot. Yeah, it was great. But I also took it how Emma said, like it's an
Yeah.
inherited family trait. That's how I perceived it. But
I think I
interesting about the
watched it when
lycanthropy.
we were talking about werewolves at the time. That's when I finally saw
Oh,
it. Just on a
interesting.
werewolf list.
Huh.
But it didn't feel
Really?
werewolfy enough for me that I was like, I'm not gonna talk about this.
Weird.
One that's
Yeah.
considered more of a vampire movie that
Mhm.
I was thinking about with cannibalism is Rabid, which is an early David Cronenberg film, which I won't get into too much. But then it made me think that there's a lot of cannibalism, depending on how it's
Mhm.
depicted in the film, could be very similar to vampirism or zombies. Or
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
it
Oh,
just
definitely.
connects to that, and it connects to those same animalistic traits. When it comes to more characters, more like Hannibal,
Mm.
where it's like the idea of, so I mentioned the Ubermensch a lot. I'm not an expert on Nietzsche, like by far, was totally. But the Ubermensch is something that came up with the Thus Spoke. I could be even saying that wrong, but he wrote that in 1883. And Nietzsche's intention with that book is more about how the common man can get in touch with more of his logical senses, and his God is dead. If you listen to Nine Inch Nails, you'll totally know about it. God is dead. A kind of separation from religion, which I'm not saying is about. I'm just saying in general that's what it's about. And
Yeah.
it's been interpreted in a lot of different ways by a lot of horrible people, and some not so horrible. But one is I have to read the name to make sure I get this right. Rudiger Safransky. He says that written down, the Ubermensch represents a higher biological type reached through artificial selection at the time, is also an ideal for anyone who is creative and strong enough to master the whole spectrum of human potential. Good and evil is in quotation marks for some reason. Evil, only evil. I don't know why. What the fuck we doing here? To become, and I like this phrase, I don't like how it's being used in this context, but to become an artist tyrant, which sounds very much like Agent of Chaos. Like it sounds
I
very
like artist
Joker.
pirate too.
Not in this context, but I like
You
the,
mean
like,
you don't want to eat people?
So what happens with the Ubermensch is I was debating whether I should say these particular words on a live, but we're not going to erase the Holocaust, okay? But the Nazis were super into the whole idea of the Ubermensch, and it's related to eugenics and so it's been taken into bad places. And there's a lot of interesting movies that usually deal with murder and sometimes cannibalism, like with Hannibal or Alfred Hitchcock's Rope is another good one where it takes place in one. It's not cannibalism; it's just murder. Murder and cannibalism could be interchangeable with this, but the idea that the super smart and the super artistic tyrant, right, have the privilege of doing whatever they want to anybody because they're so whatever, and which is always an interesting. Then you watch Hotel Hell or Flesh Eating Mothers or Auntie Lee's Meat Pies or The Hills of Eyes, and they're like supposed to be dumb and inbred, and it's just so weird. It's just a weird classist thing that comes with cannibalism. I love it. It's so weird.
You touched a little bit on like the cultural aspect, which has some very similar ties to it, to be honest, because there's this idea that certain cultures would eat their elders as when they passed. It wasn't.
It was
so
a
much like they would
request.
yeah.
It was a
And
request
it was
from
to
the
like
loved one.
pass their essence on to the next generations, and it would make the families and their lineage stronger for it. Do you guys
Seriously.
watch The Farm?
No.
Yeah.
Or no, I did a while ago and it was boring, I think.
Yeah.
It was boring.
Yeah. I mean, I had a lot of problems with the fact that they were in like dog crates that I own, that I'm like, this thing falls apart all the time. Like, how are you not
Right?
getting out of this?
God.
You can tumble out of that, no problem. Like I have no, like you can bend,
Yeah,
like
I think I
it's
said in
not
my review,
hard.
like dogs get out of these and they don't have opposable thumbs. Okay.
Right?
Two of my dogs, they can open them, no problem.
Yeah.
It was so boring. Like they could have gone so much further so many times and they just
Yeah.
didn't. I
But
don't know
where
what
they
they were
did go
doing.
far, I had a problem with. I did not like the baby scene.
I
That
figured
was
you
too
didn't,
much
yeah.
for me.
I don't
But
even remember that.
I felt like they could have gone farther with some of the other
Mhm.
stuff that you
So
don't
much.
witness. And I'm like, and
Yeah.
it's refreshing to a degree because I did watch a film today that did go there, just like every other film goes there.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't sometimes. What was that film that we watched today, Emma? I already forgot the name.
A Dying Breed. I didn't even
Dying
finish
Breed,
it. I
that's
was so
right.
bored.
I don't think 8 Films to Die For or
It takes
like
place
the
in
movies.
Tasmania.
Yeah, so it's
Mm.
an Australian horror, and I love Australian horror. And I thought this film was
I usually do
pretty
too.
good for a little while, but the characters are so insufferable. You do get excited when they get off, but they make all the most frustrating decisions. And some of the stuff that goes down is very tropey.
I was hoping because Amazon Prime showed us a picture. I don't know why. It must be a random picture from something because it's not in the movie. I didn't see the
Yeah,
ending.
it's not,
But it
no.
shows like an
Never.
eyeball in a cocktail glass. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So I was expecting that maybe they're not going to have the locals be the people that are cannibals, that there's like some rich elite that are cannibals. And that didn't seem to be true. Then Justine confirmed that it's not.
Did we talk about Cannibal Club in the last episode?
I haven't seen it.
No.
Oh my god, 'cause that movie is so good. Emma,
I
you need to watch
loved
Cannibal
that.
Club.
Yeah. I
Because
highly
that's
recommend.
exactly what Cannibal Club
Yep.
could have gotten away with the martini glass with an eyeball in it because that's
Absolutely.
exactly
I
what it's
wanted
about.
a martini glass with an eyeball. I'm very disappointed I didn't get one.
I'm talking like kebab, like we're gonna like slice off a piece of meat for everybody around the
Yeah.
table. Like I'll just
Plus,
our
that
lovely
first-
person.
The first kill is incredible. Like
Really
so good.
impractical though.
Totally.
Because of
But
how it ends, you're like, yeah, how did you guys not see
What's
that
the first
happening?
kill? Tell us the first kill. A little bit. Give us a taste.
wait,
Give
wait,
us
wait,
a
wait, wait.
taste.
First of all, I swear to God, this club is like, no, people have to be like in the thralls of like orgasm for us to eat their meat, for one.
Mm.
'Cause, like,
What?
every person they kill is like full fledged at the peak of orgasm in
Yeah.
sex. Like
But the person being eaten or the person eating?
the people that are gonna get eaten,
Mhm.
they kill them in
There is a real
thralls
case
of
like that,
sex.
but we won't
Like,
get into that.
they are like literally orgasming and then they kill them.
That's a real
Like,
thing. That's a real thing.
And
I'm not
that's how
kidding.
they. I feel like there's something there. They're like,
Yeah.
this is when the hormones and the meat is the sweetest.
The juiciest.
And the sex is very juicy in this movie.
It is. There's a lot
It's
of sex. Yeah.
It is the
Yeah.
sexiest cannibal movie I've ever seen.
Why didn't you guys say that? Why I would have watched it.
Yeah, we both
Literally
did.
my review.
I don't remember you guys saying it was sexy. The
Um,
kebab is actual Bob.
It's actual Bob. It's Bob who
Yeah.
just got bobbed. like,
And he liked it, right? That's the thing,
yeah,
right?
they
I
like-
mean-
well, I feel like they think that they're hired to like do some porn or something because they're like in a big warehouse at one point.
Oh, I love a good
and they're
movie that's shot
filming
in a
them,
warehouse.
and they're just having sex
It's true.
standing up in this like warehouse. And then a dude looking like an executioner with a bat with spikes on it comes in and just whacks him. And that's not even
Oh,
the
yeah.
first kill that Crystal was talking about. You don't even see that one. You just hear it. The
Yeah.
first kill is some cuckold stuff. Like you're following this married couple, this rich married couple, who the husband hires a security guard specifically. The wife picks him out usually to kill his wife while he watches behind a mirror.
She picks the guy
and
that she gets diddled by.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
And then,
okay.
and while
That makes
her
sense, I
husband
guess.
watches behind a mirror, and then
Okay.
he'll come in as soon as it's like literally peak orgasm and axe him in the back of the head, and then they eat him.
But the best part is when he's like orgasming.
That's not the best part,
There's
though.
there's actually blood coming out at the same time, and she's just like smearing it all over her body.
Oh yeah, she's loving
Why
it.
you guys did not make it clear that movie was like that? Otherwise, I would have watched it.
One
Oh, man.
moment, because
No.
I'm gonna pull up my review.
I
remember
feel
that
cheated.
notebook.
I feel cheated. I love movies like that. I feel cheated.
I put axe emoji and then water emoji. That's all I need to say.
The squirt
Like,
emoji. It's
squirt
the
emoji,
Squirt,
yeah.
It's the squirt emoji.
Yeah, because that kill was everything. I loved it.
I said
Mhm.
cuckolding plus cannibalism equals the Cannibal Club. Need I say more? By far the sexiest cannibal film I have ever seen.
I can't see every notification, you guys. Oh my god.
Okay, first of all, whenever we're gonna film an episode, I watch the letterbox announcements for whatever you guys are watching. And that's
I
how
usually
pick my
do too, but
movie
I can't
after I've
catch
watched
everything.
mine.
I
It's
feel
okay,
really
it's
cheated.
okay,
I feel
it's
very
okay.
cheated.
I will make sure now when I find a real winner that
Yeah,
makes me
we'll write it down.
super excited like this, I will make sure to say, Emma, you have to watch this.
Me too.
I will,
Especially
be
when I
sure
ask.
to do
I
that.
asked today, what should I squeeze in today?
I honestly
And you guys will
thought
know
you
there was
watched
like
that
no
one
answer.
Because how could you not after this?
Because
Working to
as
axe
you
and
said,
shit.
this is what it's like to be close to me. It's insufferable. Wait for it. You said you watch those announcements from Letterboxd, so you would have fucking seen that I hadn't watched Cannibal Club, and you would have recommended it today. See what
You
Tor
have
lives
a-
with. See what the
you have a-
Okay,
You have
but I don't keep
Like a
track of
knife.
what you've watched that I've watched. I'm trying to figure out what you haven't that I haven't watched. Like, so
Sure,
I'm
sounds-
looking at it, and I'm like, do I wanna
I'm
watch
not actually
Cannibal
mad, you guys.
Women
I'm
or
not actually
Cannibal
mad.
Girls or
Everyone,
whatever
just
it was
so
that you
everyone
watched
knows.
today? Half of the time I'm like, Emma's watching some shit I know I'm not gonna watch.
That's fair. That's fair.
straight up.
Crystal
you
does it
guys.
too. There's half the
I
stuff you
do.
guys watch. I'm like, I am never gonna watch this movie.
It's true.
So
Wait,
I-
wait.
It's true.
I
It's
watched
true.
one that you guys talked about in part 1, and I watched Blood Diner. I
Oh.
watched it.
What did
Yeah.
you think?
I loved it.
It's so fun.
It's so chaotic and just crazy. I didn't even look.
It's female directed. It's an unofficial sequel to Herschel Gordon Lewis's Blood Feast. Have you
Which
seen
I
Blood Feast?
haven't seen. No,
You,
haven't watched
I
that one.
think, would like Blood Feast. It is a
I know.
terrible movie, but it is terribly good. I love the
So much.
uncle.
Yeah.
I love the brain in the jar. I love it. And then the when they go to
He
the
sounds
rival
like a
diner,
Nazi.
there's like it's not even a mannequin or a puppet. I don't know what it is. And the guy's doing ventriloquism for it. What is that? What is
There
happening?
is so much
Yeah.
packed into that movie.
So
It's crazy. But the
much.
cop, the girl cop, the female cop, the woman,
She was hot. She was super
fucking
hot.
cool. She's so
very cool.
But also the shit she put up with, I was like, girl, you're so much better than them.
Yeah.
There's also an
so much
awesome
better.
scene where the two brothers that are basically it's about two brothers that are getting sacrifices, usually women, to bring back this Egyptian god, just like Blood Feast. So they are attacking a couple on the beach, and then one brother gets defeated by the woman. She just isn't having it. She's not me, and I love that. I love that.
I
I was into
also
it.
love the running joke with her partner who just like randomly shoots his gun off and is really ridiculous with it.
That feels like a premature ejaculation joke to me.
I think so, because he's also like really into her and like he's a
Mhm.
super simp for her. Anything she wants to do, even though he's
He's also a little bit of a perv, but like a harmless perv.
yeah.
It-
He's like the perv that you encourage and play along with because it's fun.
Mm.
Crystal, what were your favorite parts? I was a newbie.
My two favorite parts: topless aerobics and
Oh
the,
yes!
and
What was
the
second one?
the head deep frying scene. And then he
And
my
he just
favorite
like
part.
whacks it off.
Yeah,
She's just running around with this slow for
I loved it.
I
so
love
much.
the ending.
hush puppy.
The ending was also good. I
Like
liked
the cops are doing like all like at this club and they're like doing this event and Sheetar
it's
just
the
fucking
vibe.
leaves like it's nothing, like whatever. She just
Yeah.
leaves and goes about her way.
Cheater.
I actually have a question because I wasn't sure. So is the uncle's brain in Sheetar? So does that make him part of her, or is she like her own thing?
I don't know.
I like to
There's a
think
lot
that's
going on
the
in that
thing,
movie, so
There's
it's
a
hard
lot
to
and that
say.
going
like
on.
the uncle's plans and stuff were just like fuck. Because that's how it usually goes in these movies where like they have this idea that they're going to bring back this like higher power or this demon or this entity or whatever in a lot of like Lovecraft style horror.
Mm.
And
Oh,
it all
God,
goes to
Sedona.
shit for them because they just never understood what they were doing fully enough. They had their own selfish needs or desires for what they were doing. And in the end, they get like devoured by the thing that they were
Yeah.
worshipping. That's how I feel that ended for him.
But Blood Diner is a lot of fun.
Mhm.
It does have certain things of the time, but it is just a
Mhm.
blast. Don't go in for fun.
I
You're not.
also love the guy, the like baddie in that. He's suave. Like
The main brother.
yeah, I was
Yeah,
like,
he
"Oh,
is
he's
a little
cute."
suave. And I'm like,
why is he so cute? I would have fallen for
he,
him too. That
he
would've been
was cute.
Cannibal.
But he's the kind where you're like, he's a little weird, but he's cute. But then you find out he's
He
a
was
little
doing
too
the nice
weird.
guy trope. He was doing the nice guy trope for sure.
He was nice
I'm a
guy, but
bad boy who
also
will
a little
defend
bit
you.
bad boy. A little bit bad boy. But then you find out he's a little too weird, and then you like duck out before it gets too weird for you.
Just eating
That's
people.
happened to me a lot. That's happened to me a lot in my
Deep
life
frying
with men and
hush
women and
puppying
others.
hookers, like-
It's just like, okay, I thought your weird was cute, and now your weird is a little much. So
Yeah.
So
you do you though. I'm
did
just
you
not gonna
watch
be a part.
Colony? Did you watch the
No,
Colony?
I didn't.
Okay. Okay.
Do you guys want to talk about that?
No, I was just going to briefly talk about there's post-apocalyptic cannibalism that I think is a really cool genre. I feel like it crops up in a lot of post-apocalyptic horror, like
Very
the
much.
Doomsday, the
Soylent
Colony,
Green?
Snowpiercer. These
Mhm.
are
Green?
aspects. Soylent Green. Yeah. I feel like anytime there's a post-apocalyptic world, the worst thing you can come across in that universe is rapists and cannibals. And
The
well,
Bad
both.
Batch is another one,
The
and
Bad Batch,
Lilia
yeah.
Mirpour.
One of the things that sparked this idea for this episode was Thanksgiving, but the other was Bones and All is going to be coming out. And that has Timothy Chalamet. And I can't forget what the actress's name is. She's an up and coming actress. She just starred in something else. But that looks like it's going to be one of those kind of adorable cannibalism movies.
Adorable
where-
cannibalism movie.
From what I'm hearing, it's very like Bonnie and Clyde meets cannibalism. It looks to be like it's set in the late 70s or 80s. It talked about how it's kind of a cute cannibalism
Mm.
movie. And I kind of expect this to be like a cute romantic cannibalism movie where there's going to be some Bonnie and Clyde aspects. I believe they'll be on the run, but they're like a young love type of story. So I'm really excited to see what that one's going to be like. And I've
Yeah.
heard really good things about it. So it's hit a few of the, I think, pre-screenings already and some festivals. and it's gotten rave reviews.
Interesting.
So
Cool.
I'm excited for it. But that's
Yeah.
partly why I wanted to do a cannibalism episode so badly. Not just because Thanksgiving, because that's ironic, but that movie is dropping the week of Thanksgiving.
You also watched Green Butchers, which we didn't talk about very much. We just talked about how Mads
I
Mikkelsen's in it.
tried to. I didn't. I still need to watch it fully.
Do you
It
mind if I
looks
give you
quirky.
the ending of it? It's not
Oh
really a
no, not at
surprise.
all. Not at all.
So part of its charm, which we talked about, is Mads Mikkelsen plays like a really awkward, balding, very awkwardly sweaty guy. He's not the only main character, but it's basically these guys that start a butcher shop on their own. They're a little bit dumb, but they accidentally lock electrician into the freezer. It's like a total accident, but they're also out of meat for that day, and then they serve it. But what happens at the end when people are are kind of
Very Dale
figuring
and
out
Tucker, right?
a little, if it was Danish. My other half is Scandinavian, so I've seen a lot of Danish comedy, and this is one of those like staples of Danish comedy. It has a lot of that humor in it that I recognize in a lot of, like, even Lars von Trier has done a comedy called The Boss of It All, which is a whole other conversation. Anyway, Green Butchers. So at the end, they, when people are figuring things out and they've gotten rid of all the bodies and stuff like that, and they're like, "What are we gonna do?" Because they became popular and successful, and they're like, "Oh my god, we can't do this human meat thing. People are gonna figure things out." It turned out it was the marinade recipe the whole time. It wasn't the fact that it was human meat, and they live happily ever after, and it's cute.
I
That's
don't
the
know.
Green
That gives
Butchers.
me like Death at a Funeral, Dale and Tucker kind of vibes with the whole like happenstance and ridiculousness of it to collide into them kind of having a funny outcome. I did enjoy what I did see of it, and I think that Mads Mikkelsen is just a treasure, even when he's really goofy looking.
He's
He's such
not
a good
supposed to
actor.
be
Like,
attractive. He's a very good actor.
yeah.
Oh, Dumplings is another one that we haven't
Oh,
talked
Yeah,
that was
I'd
about.
my
watch that, right?
favorite. This movie's so good, but I don't know if you would like it, Justine. I don't know if this would be a bit
I
of a
love
trigger thing for
dumplings.
you. I don't think you'd like. I don't want to give anything away if anybody hasn't seen
They
it
eat
because it's
babies.
kind of,
Yeah.
but
Okay,
in a different
fetuses.
way. Yeah,
Oh.
it's people are eating these dumplings in order to regain their youth, and so they think that eating these things will give them back their youth.
Are they abortions? Are they eating abortions?
They're fetuses, yeah.
Yes.
And it's
I love this.
Okay.
well, no,
okay.
it's interesting also because if it's a male, because it's where's
It's
this movie from?
More
Crystal,
youth?
is it
Do I get
Chinese?
more youth with males?
Yes.
I don't know. Hold on.
Yes.
It's
We're never actually told if it actually works or not. Did you get that, Crystal? Our main character thinks it's working and she looks good, but there's nothing like
Yeah.
there's not a drastic change. So we don't know if it's like she thinks, except for the woman that makes them. She seems to be pretty young for her
Do you
age.
think that there's a
She's
little
like 60
racism with that?
something.
It's so with a it's a play on, of course, different countries have different patriarchal societies, but it's another country like America that has a patriarchal society, and where she was an actress, our main character, and her husband seems to be losing interest, whatever, that kind of stuff. And the idea of youth and the importance of beauty and youth. It's a dark comedy, but also it's serious and it's good.
It's quite serious, honestly. It's from Hong Kong, by the way. Yeah, it pushes a lot of boundaries. I don't think it could be remade today and be taken very well.
That's what I was wondering because
Yeah.
there's a lot of cultural things that have happened in the past with certain products that are supposed to like medicinally help you that are not.
This
good,
isn't
like
a
shark
clinic.
fin
This is just a
soup
woman
and-
in her apartment.
No,
Yeah.
I know. Like cultural, what's the word? What's the word when you do like alternative medicine? They don't believe in that stuff obviously anymore. So to say things like people in Hong Kong eat aborted fetuses to be younger.
Well, it's
you know
not
what I
like
mean?
a widespread
Like-
thing. I think that it could be made
Yeah.
today. I think that we think that a lot of the time we think
I'm talking
this
about
could
the
be made
connection
today.
between those two things though. Like
The
what
fetus?
actually has happened in real life versus a film kind of exaggerating on something very similar. And
Oh, I think it could happen today. Maybe not in a mainstream way, but I definitely think, and this is, I don't know how mainstream this film was, Crystal. I don't know
holistic
I
the
don't know.
distribution it had. I definitely think that we think a lot of the time certain films couldn't be made today, but I do think that there are filmmakers working towards that.
I think it could be made, but I don't think it would be taken very
well.
It's not that old. What year did it come out?
2004.
I'm like really intrigued by this movie now. I'm like,
It's a
oh,
really
so
good movie. It is
that's
like
like
it
the
pushes boundaries,
opposite of
but
what you would expect. They typically
yeah.
are trying to get rid of the girls, right? That's what the stories usually. Have you seen Demons? Neon
Yeah, I
Yes.
love that
Demons?
movie.
I sound like that
Mhm.
Uncut Gems chick for a second. Sorry.
Demons? Neon Demons?
Neon Demons.
That's one that has the whole thing of consuming of one's essence, just like dumplings, but in a different way.
Yes. Yes, because like they consume the prettier model and
Yeah.
they hope that they can consume her like supermodelness. That movie's so pretty. Like,
It's so aesthetically pleasing to
so
watch.
pretty. Yeah, like
Yeah.
up there
Is
with
that the one where Keanu
Kong.
Reeves
Like,
makes like a cameo as like the motel manager or something?
I don't remember him in
I
that.
don't recall him.
I-
I haven't watched this
He's
in
in
a
it
while,
very
but
briefly, I believe. Like very briefly.
I'll have to rewatch
Oh.
it. I didn't rewatch it this time, but I
me
do.
neither.
It's one of the prettiest, like most stylish films, and
Mhm.
Ellie Fanning is just effing gorgeous.
It's
Like,
very gel light.
They all are.
yeah.
They're
Oh,
all
there's
so
they
stunning.
use lighting very intentionally in that film.
Mm.
Like, it
Yeah.
tells a story throughout. Like her development as a character is hallmarked by the lighting on her throughout the film.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to watch her like turn almost and then
Mhm.
Do
get
you
eaten.
do you guys think that
It was so
the
good.
overall message basically is that it's like sacrificing a certain amount of innocence and beauty for the sake of others?
I felt like it was more of old ways just won't go the fuck away and they are tearing up us like generation after generation, eating us alive. The whole fact, in fact, it's happening right now on TikTok as we speak. Like, not just TikTok, obviously, but TikTok's like a microcosm that you can watch it happen on. But the
Fast,
fact
too.
that,
Fast.
yeah,
TikTok is
super fast. The
fast.
fact that we're starting to see the trend towards hyper skinny, super skinny women again, it's super low
Mhm.
rise jeans. All of that is from the early 2000s is happening again in front of our eyes. I would say luckily we're around and we're super vocal and we're super connected to technology still enough to like make it super aware, I guess, to everybody. But the fact that that just keeps happening, no matter how body positive we're trying to be or how good I think we are getting at rejecting companies that aren't body positive, I still feel like there's this generation before us that's always going to be like just fucking putting us down as far as we all have a lot of trauma from our previous generation that is hard to unlearn. And
In
that's
fifth
what I got
grade,
from
I was
Neon
taking Slim
Demon.
Fast, the shake,
Yeah,
to
Me
lunch for
too.
school. At
I
in
have
fifth
had
grade,
like
a child
body
shouldn't be thinking about that.
dysmorphia since
Yeah.
I was very young. I look at pictures now when I used to think that I was fat and was like, wow, like the
Yeah.
fact that I thought that I was fat in these pictures just is mind blowing. I still am healing from that because I'm still trying to be healthy, but it's not being healthy. It's trying to heal my mind and body at the same time without becoming disordered, without having an eating disorder or feeling unhappy with who I am. And that's what I think Neon Demons captured in like metaphor. And it's such a beautiful film that I still pick at my body while I watch. So that is it's like I'm hyper aware of what this
Yeah.
film is trying to tell us about what it is to be beautiful and how self-destructive it is, but at the same time they're so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck? And how you see these two crazy gorgeous women being so insecure in the face of
Mhm.
an Ellie Fanning character to the point where they cannibalize her.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. It's one of those films that makes me really uncomfortable, but in a way that I
And
think is
it's
both
more
healthy and
about
scary.
it's interesting
Yeah.
because they're all equally beautiful. The
Yeah.
one our main character, what played with Fanning, is treated like she's the more beautiful one by men
Mhm.
and people in the industry. So it's
Yeah.
like the perception of her that makes the others feel like she needs to be the one that's consumed. And as we get older, and hopefully with the younger generation, with the spread of information, become more aware that no matter what your gender is or your body type is, it's never going to be enough.
Now
No
we're
matter
reversing
what
that.
your body is,
Yeah.
it's not enough. You need to get the lash extensions. Not that there's anything wrong getting lash extensions. I'm allergic to the glue. Otherwise, I'd do it. My face blew up. Like, it was scary. Anyway, but the idea that no matter what you do, no matter how hard you work out, no matter what it's not enough. And then so the older you
Never
get, and I hope this happens sooner with the younger folks because of their availability to information, that you just don't give a fuck anymore.
It's getting worse.
Is it? Oh, that's unfortunate. Because as a
Well,
person that's
it's so easy to
I've
manipulate
never been
forms. It's all
overweight,
fake.
or like
Like,
overweight or perceived as overweight. So I know I have a certain privilege to talking about that. So I try to be very cautious of it.
well,
But
I
no
have
matter what
unsafe
you look
things to you
like,
that I wish I could take back about that. Because
what?
like everybody has an issue with their body. And I've said things to you like, I wish I was that skinny. I wish I was as skinny as
Oh, it
you
doesn't
are.
bother me. I'm like, it
I
doesn't
know
bother. I'm
it
like,
doesn't bother you, but because we're friends. But it bothers me that I've said that. It bothers me
I think you're
because
gorgeous. And I'm not just saying that because I'm your friend. I think you're gorgeous. And it's just that thing, like, if you want to lose weight, that's fine, but I don't think you need to
right.
lose weight.
Um,
But it's
I
up to
hear
you.
that
It's your body.
I hear it all the time. I have embraced myself as of I did a fit check on TikTok for the first time where I showed my whole body for the first time, like just this last week. And I was like, I was really stressful because I am not happy with my weight. But it's not about whether I'm happy with my weight according to society's standards. What I'm finding is it's about figuring out how to make yourself feel more confident in the body that you have right now instead of thinking, oh, I'll be prettier when I lose weight, or I'll buy myself nicer clothes once I lose weight. That is what I'm finding is a better mindset. The idea of I need to dress my body how it is right now and buy for my body as it is right now instead of waiting to spend money once I've earned it. Because this is my body and it's not a bad body, it's a good body.
And
I just
it
weird
is a good
things.
body. I hope that we get more, whether it's in the form of cannibalism or what have you, the even more films that kind of touch upon this idea. And I felt like Satane touched on the idea of gender and when it comes to feeling yourself in your body in its own way. But I don't want to ruin Satane a little bit. It was a very small part of a very big movie about a lot of things. Body horror is my freaking favorite. It's my freaking favorite, whether it has to do with that sort of topic or it has to
Yeah.
do with disease, more so what Cronenberg usually does, or it has to do with being deformed like Tusk. See, I talk about Tusk and I tease Justine about Tusk, and I know Crystal, you're like fine with it. I have to prepare myself to watch that movie. It upsets me. It upsets me. It does. I have to admit it. I admit
get
it.
triggered.
fair.
I get triggered by that movie so much. I don't
It's
know what it is
upsetting.
about the ending of that film and how good the execution was to
And it's
make
still
it
kind of funny.
feel
They
so real and look so real. And like the ending, the assimilation part, that I've said this so many times. That is the part that fucks me up. It's the idea that you've been completely transformed and you have to accept it. Like that total lack of control over your future and your autonomy is fucking terrifying. Fresh has that similar like body horror to it where you're being slowly changed or affected and you have no choice in the matter, and there she has to choose to assimilate to the situation to a degree. I don't know why I loved Fresh so much, partly because Sebastian Stan, obviously,
We
but
stan
also
him.
I Stan, yeah.
he bugs me.
He was so good in this.
He was very good in this.
So
You know
good.
what bugged me about it?
So good.
It wasn't him. He did a very good performance, but it felt very much, oh, we're doing a Hannibal / American Psycho thing in a way that was like a little bit too close to me. But I'm really freaking picky about that stuff. So I did
He
like
felt
the
to
movie
me
though.
like the perfect guy to go on a date with to turn out to be a narcissist. So
I
well from like experience with that type of person that I was just like, I fucking hate and love this guy, and that's exactly my problem.
And you could read him right
Exactly my
away, right?
problem.
She wanted him to be like this nice guy so bad, but I feel like the audience is supposed to be able to read him right away. Not only
But that's
because
how it goes.
we're in a
My
horror
friends
movie.
always know. My friends always know when I'm dating a fucking psycho or a narcissist. They always know from
I'm lucky. I've never
out
dated a
here
psycho.
looking
Good.
in.
Feels
They
good.
seem to catch on to all of the nuance or problems. For some reason, my boyfriend and my friends just don't get along. But it turns out that he's a psycho or a narcissist. And I'm blinded by it because here's the thing, when you're dating someone, you're hoping for the best. So your goal is to look for that. You're looking for all of the good things, and you're just
Yeah.
like, oh, I can change him, or it's not.
Well,
that
and also
bad.
when a person is really ridiculously hot
And this
and the
goes
sex
both
is really
ways, men
good,
do this
it's like
too.
hard to see the
And
other
Sebastian
bells
Stan
and
is so fucking hot. I would literally watch him
not my
eat
type.
people and be fine. I'm fine. It's fine. I'll change him.
He's
I'll change
another
him.
brother type for me. For some reason, I see him as like a brother type. I don't know why. Not the character,
Oh, I
obviously.
see Winter Soldier.
He is more attractive as Bucky. I like the long dark hair.
He's attractive in a lot of things. He was attractive as
He
Tommy
is.
Lee. Just attractive dude. Like he's
Yeah.
got those puppy dog eyes and that like bone structure. The Covenant.
He's the
Have you seen The
brother. He's
Covenant?
my brother.
He's a baddie in that one too, and I'm like, it's okay.
So
We need
it's
to like
interesting.
fan you down.
I think one of the more interesting
Sebastian
characters in
Stan
Fresh
was
is
my like big thirst problem before I met you guys. Like right before I met you guys, like my For You page was nothing but Bucky Barnes for a long time. And when I met you guys, we were talking about other stuff, and it changed my For You page. And you guys have become thirsty about other characters since then. But Bucky was my.
I was
Eddie
stopped dead in my
Munson.
tracks on my For You
I
page.
was obsessive with
One actor just
Sebastian
looked
Stan.
into the. If you were in our Discord, you'd know. If you're not in our Discord, you won't know.
Anyways, beyond that though, I think
Oh my
Fresh.
God. So join our
Such a
Discord if you
good-
do talk about other things if you're not interested in that.
Barely.
Well, can we talk the cannibalistic part besides Sebastian
Yes, the
Stan being
cannibalistic
hot or a
part.
brother type?
Yes, I think that part was so interesting. It felt very reminiscent of Hostel, where like the rich and powerful were purchasing meat for human consumption. A lot of what you talked about earlier, specifically, Emma, around Nietzsche and all of that, ties into Fresh a lot because they weren't just buying meat;
They're
buying
buying
entire
parts of them, like
stories and trophies. Yeah,
like their
exhibits.
bracelets, pictures of them, little pieces.
Yeah.
Because the
Their
whole
backstory,
because
like
the
Tinder
whole
bios.
allegory is about dating online, really. It feels, or the dating world, particularly online, is that you get these little pieces of someone's life
Yeah.
and then little pieces of them, and you consume pieces of them in a way, but you see them as possessions. And that's how I read
The
Fresh.
commodification of women in the dating world. Exactly. Because this has happened so often. And I fucking don't get it, guys. And maybe someday you guys will do this to me enough that I will fucking swear off men. But I'm a trusting person and I'm hopeful. But this happens so often that you go on dating apps, and no matter how upfront and honest you are about your intentions, they're going to say whatever the fuck you want to hear to
Of
get
course.
you and what they want from you. And
Yeah.
that
I've never
will
done it.
Never,
I've never done it.
not baffle me. If you just tell me up front, like, I am a very sexually empowered woman. I like to have sex. I don't have a problem with one night stands and having good sex with people once in a while. If you told me at the very beginning of a relationship or an interest, I'm just looking to have sex, I would have been like, you know what? I'm actually down tonight. Let's do that. I would have sex. Great. But if you turn around and you imply, like, I'm
Great.
not looking for just sex, I want to have an actual relationship. I want to show interest in your interests. I want to like, and you fucking play that fiddle, you better play the song because I'm going to invest in the song emotionally. I will switch on and switch off that switch following that lead. So it bothers me that men do that. Don't do that. Like
I've never done
I've
online
never
dating,
experienced it with
which is
women.
not a brag or anything. I just never have done it. But
Maybe I'm just jaded, but I feel like Fresh hit every note when it came to that. When it came to like how women feel targeted and our feelings in a way that I think was easy for a lot of people to consume and feel viscerally. Because sometimes I think the idea of someone being on a dating app and getting taken advantage of is so diluted nowadays that people have no sympathy for it. They don't care. But if you say that someone was cannibalized, like suddenly we
well,
care
it's the
about the
idea
commodification
that
of women.
someone's time and emotion it's something that's highly valued for every individual, and to play with that is cruel.
Exactly. Not just if you eat them.
Obviously, that's worse. I'd rather be played
Right.
with like emotionally than
Yeah,
eaten.
please don't
That's
cut
just
off my
me. Maybe
ass.
that's just me. I would rather keep my ass fat. I need it to sit.
Made
Mm.
me so uncomfortable that scene in the movie.
Although it
Yeah.
did feel like the safest thing for him to take. Like she's not like losing a leg yet or anything like that.
You can put an ass
She could get an
fat back.
implant. She could get an
Yeah.
implant. She could fix that. Not that I'm not
Not that wife who was
minimizing the
missing an
just
entire leg.
I'm
Yeah.
not minimizing somebody taking a part of your body and it being awful.
It's
But
not.
it's not the same, but that doesn't mean it's not traumatic. Trouble Every Day, which was it's more about lust and insatiable hunger. It's a slower movie. It's categorized in the French extreme movie, but Claire Dennis, who doesn't usually do horror movies, when she was doing the festival circuit, everyone gave her shit. Like, you did a horror movie? Like, she got a lot of shit for that movie, and it's being
Oh,
rediscovered. What did you think of it, Crystal? Because I know that you watched it.
I did not.
Yeah, it was slow, like very slow. And before, not a lot happened up until when it actually did happen. Like the pacing was really weird. But I was intrigued the whole time, if that makes sense. Like I was very invested in the story and the characters, but I wanted more. I didn't even believe that it
It
was a
did get
cannibal
very
movie.
bloody. It did get very
It
bloody.
did. Once it got to that, I
Someone
was
was
happy with
eaten.
it. Yeah, no, it got to that point and it was good, but yeah, I felt like I wanted a little bit more cannibalism in it. But
I agree with that. I did find it an interesting take on it being about this insatiable lust. And which
yeah,
happened, which is this is a totally different movie that I'm diverting into. Did you either of you guys watch Parents?
I
I love
did.
that movie.
Yeah.
So you like dark places, son? The darkest place,
Hey,
Randy Quaid.
Randy Quaid. Yeah, I love Randy Quaid for one, and I always forget how much I love him. Like
He's
until I
great
see
in
him in
movies.
another movie.
I don't know what I know he's got
He-
some troubles in his life. I don't like to make fun of an easy target. He's got whatever issues going on, but he's great in movies. He's really great.
I don't know about him personally. I do know that anytime I see him on screen, I get really excited because his characters are always a good time. I just rewatched Hard Rain with Christian Slater and him. I don't know. He's just fun. He's fun to
The
watch.
interesting thing about Parents was it's more the theme of the snake eating its own tail, because it's
Sure.
very much a take on like the Leave It to Beaver 1950s, the idea that we put on this persona of being a traditional good people family, but
His
there's like these
parents
dark
are so into
secrets.
each other.
They are, but
Yeah.
part of being
It's
into
like
each other
that.
is they eat
Yes.
somebody together while they're having sex. Like that idea that it's like that repressed sexuality that we
Keep it
perceive
spicy.
from the 50s, and like the kid walking in on his parents having sex, but his parents they're having sex and also eating somebody. That kid was very interesting. I love the counselor. So the kid's kind of a voyeur at the same time, where he's like hiding in the closet and he hears his teacher and his guidance counselor talking, and they're like, I wish I could put that boy into a box, like bipolar disorder, but you know what? I can't, and I like him. I like him. It's just a weird. It's like this movie to me felt. There's a lot of cannibalism ideas in it, but it felt very much the idea of the weirdness of the world of being a kid and adults, but his
Mhm.
parents just happen to be psychos. But
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
it
I
was very
love it.
interesting at the end when he says, "I don't love you anymore," and it's just like and they're like, "We're your parents." It's like the idea that you can't pick your parents. You can
Yeah.
disassociate from your parents. But anyway, what do you guys think of Parents?
One of my
It was
favorite
fun.
scenes is when the son is like, "What are we having for dinner?" And the mom's like, "Leftovers." It's like, But where are all the leftovers coming from?
Like, what were they before they were leftovers?
Yeah.
They were leftovers to be, son.
Yeah.
I love the
Um,
house,
I-
like the whole house
yeah.
design. That's my
A
favorite part.
mid-century modern.
Yeah, I love it.
Good. Yeah, I enjoy Parents mostly because I think that they're very charismatic and they're fun to
Mhm.
root for. And it gives me that like the Burbs vibe where
The Burbs, Fido, which is another about the zombie dog. Well, he's a man,
Yeah.
but they treat him like a dog. Well, he's a
Yeah.
zombie, but they treat him like a dog.
Yeah, Pleasantville, just that whole aesthetic is it's a fun thing to pervert. So I love
Another
it.
film that I know Crystal watched that I love this movie. I love that. I liked it better even than starring Karen Black, Auntie Lee's Meat Pies, which is more exploitation fun, but I loved Flesh Eating Mothers, which kind of was a allegory for venereal disease because it's like men aren't affected by it, but women get it, and what they get is like this insatiable hunger that ends up turning them into cannibals and even like changes their face. And these teenagers that are like
Give me
really
that.
old, look
If we
really
get the
old,
DD lottery, I want that one.
like the really old looking teenagers, but that they keep on saying, even before they know that it's a virus that makes them that's making their mothers cannibals, they're like, we can't blame our moms. It's society to blame. They say it twice, like Crystal, like they kept it's not our mom's fault. What do you think?
Yeah. I don't know. I just had a lot of fun with this movie, honestly. It was just a bonkers time. I really enjoyed this one. It had the same vibe to me anyways as Auntie Lee's Meat Pies. I don't know why.
It's very similar. Auntie
Very
Lee's
similar.
felt more silly. I think especially the baby thing. Like I didn't get that whole giant baby thing. What was
No,
that
I
supposed to
didn't.
mean? Was that I think it was just supposed to be funny. I don't get it. I didn't get that part.
Yeah.
Justine, you haven't seen Auntie Lee's Meat Pies, right?
No, or Flesh Eating Mothers, but
Mm.
it's something you guys are talking about that triggered a thought.
It's both
you
women.
mentioned
It's women eating people and taking charge in different
Yeah.
ways.
Perfect. You mentioned earlier, though, like the connections between cannibalism and vampires, werewolves, and zombies. I find a lot of cannibalism films are very similar in humor to the zombie humor category, like Brain Dead and Fido, you mentioned. They just have a similar like vibe and tone when it comes to the comedy with cannibalism. Love that because obviously zombies eat people and they were people and they're so similar. You guys think that the difference between a zombie and a cannibal is just the choice?
Zombies they're dead, and they also aren't the same person anymore. The
Or
person's
they're
just gone.
infected, because we could have talked about that in our zombie.
Infected. What do you think,
Go
Crystal?
check the episode, by the way.
I think
It's
there's
totally
I think there's a
hilarious.
big difference because I think there's a big difference.
Yeah. Zombies
Choice,
are doing
right?
it to zombies are doing it to like stay out.
They're
stay alive,
mindless.
you know.
They're mindless.
Yeah, they're
but-
not choosing to do it. They're just primally doing it.
And cannibals are choosing to do it.
Yeah.
Most of the time, yeah.
Or they're getting
Wow.
surgery unintentionally doing it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna milk this unintentional cannibalism thing for a while. It makes me morbid. It fits me. All right.
Fits me.
I feel like
Have diet soda.
we've had
Fits
some
me.
really cool episodes that are very specific to categories. We've talked about vampires, we've talked about werewolves, we've talked about zombies.
Vampires is one of my favorite ones.
Me too. Wow.
And I was
I would
surprised
love
because I
that.
didn't think I was that much of a vampire fan until we did that episode, and that's part of the fun
Yeah.
of doing this.
Every time we do a category specific episode, I unlock a lot of films and find a new love for an entire category every
Mhm.
single time. This was so much fun to like tap into a bunch of cannibalism films because cannibalism is really I think it's up there for people in what is considered the most depraved thing you can do. It's why
I don't think it's that depraved. I don't know why people are so uppity about it. I don't think it's something you should do.
Oh, do you know what I mean? Like this anytime
The last
you watch a
taboos of
movie,
film.
the most taboo thing you can show, there's like a top 3 in my opinion, and it's typically top 4. It's typically the worst things you can do in a horror movie, like the most depraved is child death or of any type, like anything to a child, anything to animals like dogs, especially pets like dogs and cats.
But I think that's it's so common that it's not as taboo anymore.
Cannibalism. I think those are the top 4 like things that people are just like.
I
"Oh
think
my
rape's number 1, I think. Especially depending on who the
Well,
victim is.
again,
I think that's the most
depends
taboo
on who
thing.
you're talking to. I think those are the top 4.
I think
So some
general
people find
I
cannibalism
can
the
only
worst
speak
thing
for
to
like
watch.
American and North American society, but I really think that is that because people are more comfortable and used to murder, and cannibalism seems far away. Like it doesn't seem like something that really happens. I think that rape really is the number 1 taboo thing.
But
That's my opinion.
cannibalism does happen.
Does, but not as much as rape happens.
Most serial killers, I swear, are cannibals in America. Like the most famous ones were cannibals.
The thing about it
Like,
that also, which Nope
I-
talks about, great movie we all loved. I don't know, Chris. I don't remember how you
spectacle of it.
the spectacle of it. Summer
But
8.
that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's the spectacle of the taboo. Those are the top 4. Once
Some
you get
people have
dental
done-
work done, it puts it all in perspective.
It puts it all in perspective. I haven't had that kind of dental work done, but I just feel like I could eat somebody if I had to survive. If they were already dead, I wouldn't kill somebody. I could never kill somebody, but if it was like a life or death situation, I'm gonna die if I don't eat that corpse. I could do it. That's
If that were the case, like I was locked in a room and there was no other options but to eat the dead person next to me, then sure, yeah. But I don't think it's more or less the fact that it's common or not. I'm talking more generally on what people are uncomfortable with watching in horror. And there seems to be those.
maybe I'm
4
just a freak
things.
then, and I'm fine with it.
We watch a lot of horror, so we're not good hallmarks on what is.
Yeah, we're very.
We are not. We
desensitized.
are
what is,
not.
like,
We are
shocking
not.
or
Yeah.
not. Like, because we're not. If you consume a lot of horror films, you're never going to be subjective enough to be able to discern what the greater audience would be able to handle or not. It's it's the same reason why us 3 can't say that movie was scary or not, or you're going to think it's scary. We just can't gauge that. That's just not something.
It's also such a personal thing.
Our barometer or our Overton window has shifted too far. So for what I'm talking about, it seems to me like those are the 4 things that seem to generally, for the general audience, be the most taboo things that you can put in horror films that will get people to not watch it.
There's some like delicatessen, like we don't really see anybody like actively eating somebody. So do you think people like there's different levels. If it's treated like it works separate, we know that's what's happened. As Soylent Green, like one of the most
Hannibal.
famous.
The show Hannibal.
I've never seen the show.
Was on network television, prime time. The most graphic show I've ever seen on television at the time. As someone who was an avid horror film fan, I was shocked that was on television. It's about
The creator
Hannibal
said he was
Lecter.
shocked what he got away with. And that
The
there was
first
I heard a
episode,
really
there's a
interesting
totem of body parts sculptured onto a beach. It's incredible.
So I
You
don't know the
Well,
scene directly, but I heard a really great interview with the guy that one of the showrunner, and he said that one of the only things that was censored was there was something where maybe it's the thing you're talking about. I've never seen the show where it's like bodies sculpted together, but what they were like, oh, we see too much butt crack. These
I
bodies
could see
sculpted
that.
too much butt crack, and they're like, that's what you're upset about? Okay.
Too sexual. Yeah. So the show showed a lot of body parts, but it never showed him turning somebody into meat to consume. What it did do was make the most delicious preparations I have ever seen of food. And we just happen to know that is Hannibal Lecter making this amazing cuisine. So we know that it's human meat, and that is as close of a connection you have to it. But when you see people biting flesh, like the movie I just watched today, Dying Breed, he literally bites some toes off of a girl's foot.
Well, like in
rips
Raw,
the
the
face
finger
off.
scene was upsetting. Like we don't
Yeah, like
in Raw,
when
like
you
I hate
see
to, I know somebody
flesh
hasn't seen
from
this.
human consumed, it's a very different thing because your brain will not separate it now. You cannot unimagine yourself out of that situation.
I
And
wouldn't
with
like seeing
shows like
somebody eating
Hannibal,
a cow just like directly from the cow.
exactly. But that gets back to one of my other top 4, animal harm. Nobody wants to see an animal get harmed.
That's what Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a lot about, baby. It's like connecting us to cattle and meat. It's a lot about a lot more, but that's a
That's
movie
really
that needs
uncomfortable
special
for
treatment.
people.
It's one of my favorite movies
Mhm.
of all time. I think
And
it's one of the
that's
best
exactly what I'm getting at. The disconnect that we
best
have as
films
a
of all time.
society from hunting our food and the connection we have to where our food comes from, we get it at a styrofoam and plastic at a grocery store. A lot of people do not hunt their own food. It is not easy to kill an animal and eat it. And I know from experience. I have an issue with watching animals that I don't eat get hurt. But if I see a cow butchered or a pig or a chicken, it doesn't bother me because I've done that butchering. So there's a certain connection and an Overton window that every individual has. And as the society as a whole, we are very disconnected to our food. Very. So when we see it on film, it causes a visceral response. And that's why it's so taboo, especially when it's people.
It
Because now
makes
the
us look
people
inward,
are the
baby.
meat.
We're looking inward.
Yeah. Yeah. That this was my TED Talk. Food. I don't know. I honestly, I recommend people get more connected to where their food comes from, but
Well,
also
also how we judge others, like the idea that we would call other cultures savages, whatever culture it was, just like not
right.
like white people, whatever that we
And that's
but
what I
then
was talking about
we
with
would
dumplings
steal
earlier.
another culture's body corpse and grind it for medicinal reasons. What?
That's why I was talking about dumplings
Hypocrisy.
earlier. Because
Hypocrisy.
how many people are so xenophobic that they've talked shit about Asian cultures and African cultures and their uses of animal parts that, like ivory or whatever stuff, for medicinal purposes. We had people in Great Britain eating fucking mummies for like a commodity. Like, I don't know.
Oh, it's for no, it wasn't a commodity, Justine. Medicinal purpose.
It was a commodity because only the rich
It
could
was a
afford it.
cure-all for everything.
But
Makes
only the
no
rich
sense.
could buy it. So
And it got to the point where middle class could buy it too. Like
it got to
everything.
it got to the
Then
point
then it's
where
passe.
becoming stolen and rare. That's where all the
That
money
still
is, y'all.
like
People
blows
are
my
rich.
mind. We're like, we want to know about other people's history and we just like take everything. What the fuck?
God.
Not yours to take. It's not yours to
Bringing
dig
up the
up.
word consume again. We're the most consuming demographic.
It's not ours to dig
So
up, dude. Leave it alone.
we talked a
God.
lot about cannibal movies, and I touched a little bit on Hannibal as a show. Yellow Jackets touched a bit on cannibalism. Did you guys want to talk about that?
I haven't seen it, so
I have not watched it all still.
Oh my god,
I'm
you
sorry
guys.
for
I
you.
love
Go
Juliette
ahead.
Lewis. I love her.
This
One
show
of my
is so
crushes.
good. I cannot wait
Crystal.
for season 2.
There's gonna be season 2.
Oh yes. There has
What's
to
it
be.
about? What's it about?
It's about a team, sports team. They crash their plane in the middle of the forest and then they have to survive. And the story or the whole show is split. It follows like them as kids and then it follows them as adults. So there's like the two time frames that they're following. And the
Because they
casting
were
is
inevitably
perfection.
rescued, right?
They were. Yeah, so it shows the adults, them as adults and yeah, the casting is the best casting I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Juliette
From,
Lewis
like-
is so hot. I love her.
Christina Ricci
Yeah.
is fantastic in it. Oh my
Oh, I
god.
didn't even know she was in it.
But their younger counterparts compared to them are so well done too.
Yeah.
Emma, you really should watch this. It's so good.
Watch
So
it.
good. Yeah, I highly recommend
I
it.
trust you. I trust you.
Yeah,
I
think
love a
you'd
little
really enjoy
cannibalism
this.
in survival situations.
Yeah.
I almost watched that the one about the rugby team Alive
Oh.
that has
Oh, I
Ethan
haven't
Hawke
seen
in
that
it.
one.
I can't get too distracted. I need to concentrate.
Okay.
What?
He said get too distracted.
I'll get too distracted.
I haven't watched
like
that
a
one yet
lot.
either. That brings up a really interesting question I have for you guys. Right now, speaking of cannibalism and true stories, the Dahmer
Oh yeah.
true story. I don't know if I've told you guys this, but I struggle sometimes to watch true crime. I don't mind knowing about it or hearing about it, but I don't like to watch it in media. And I struggle with it, especially because if the families or the victims are still alive, and it feels yucky. It feels very like
Exploitive.
exploitative, yeah, of real events and trauma. How do you guys feel about that? Because I understand like we don't get to choose whether this stuff is created. It's created, it's out there now. You can watch it. I don't judge anybody who likes to watch or wants to understand true crime because it can be very informative. And I think it's important that we all understand how these situations happened, what happened, how to avoid it, what to be aware of. And I think to some degree it's important to know. But how do you guys feel about the fictional depictions of it?
So the only true crime I really listened to is the last podcast on the left, and I feel they've really developed in my opinion, other people would you disagree, not because of them particularly, but just the
Mhm.
idea of true crime, where they're also like a little bit of comedic, but they really don't like they don't always talk about serial killers, but when they do talk about serial killers, they talk about that they were losers. They're people that didn't function well within society. They don't make them these big bad monsters or villains, and they talk about the idea of invisible victims. And when they covered Dahmer, they were talking a lot about the ridiculousness of the police and the
Mhm.
ridiculousness of one, I think it might have been two young men, who were
Mhm.
minorities, escaped, but they were still drugged. And the
Mhm.
police just believed Dahmer when he's like, "Oh no, he's messed up. He needs to come back with me," and gave these victims back to Dahmer, and they died. And also, they also talk about the homophobia that with the police, with ooh, this guy's like gay, so it's like icky and I don't want to look
Yeah,
into it. So
that's an important distinction, I think.
I think that they handle it well. That's my opinion. Other people might disagree. I do think that it's important to treat it depends on how it's depicted. I don't know how this new Evan Peters thing is being depicted, but I can't really say, but I've heard a lot of people talk about there isn't enough about in particular the sadness of the minorities and the families that were affected by it. So I'm just not going to engage with that particular show. But that's just me.
Yeah.
I don't
No,
judge people that
I
do.
haven't watched it yet. I was waiting for other people to watch it and to help me decide whether to watch it because I really
What
do
about you,
like
Crystal?
Evan
Wait,
Peters.
I don't think I've heard you talk about true crime at all.
Yeah, I actually really like true crime. I haven't watched this show yet. I do intend to. I really like Evan Peters, and I'm just curious to
Me too.
see
So
his
you'll have to let
depiction of
us know.
Dahmer.
Does it depict it
I
like in a
will.
way? Yeah,
Yeah,
because I'm interested.
the issue that I have with true crime is the fetishizing
Yes.
of the serial killers, and that people
Yeah.
start like looking up to them or like, getting t-shirts made with them on it. I don't agree
Uh,
with that, but
no.
I like hearing the stories and learning about it. I do find it fascinating. I like hearing how different these people are and like how crazy these people are. Do you think that there's like lessons to be learned from a lot of these true crimes? But yeah, there is a lot of issues with it, and there can be,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a
Like
tricky
the Zac
little
Efron Ted Bundy one. I watched that one. And I
yeah,
was like, Ted Bundy was not that smart. Stop it.
yeah,
Like, I feel like they over hyped up Ted Bundy's abilities and stuff. But at the same time, they
yeah,
did also show that he was a numbskull sometimes too. I don't know. It was really on the fence for me, but Zac Efron was just too fucking good looking, and it really upset me that
yeah,
he did such a good job in that show that I was like,
mm,
I'm really uncomfortable with this show now.
yeah,
That's where my issues like really started to dig into the efficacy of true crime. I don't mind hearing about true crime. Like I
Well,
like
abnormal
podcasts that
psychology
cover
is
it.
interesting.
The makeup and true crime, I like hearing her stuff.
Bailey
Typically is
Sarian.
yeah, she does a great job of talking about serial killers in a way that she's informing us and it doesn't feel like again fetishizing.
She's in
And
the
mm,
I'm
last
not watching a
podcast on the
really hot
Left Boys,
actor
but I
like
do
Evan
like her.
Peters.
mm,
I'm not watching like
um,
Evan Peters and Zac Efron looking gorgeous on screen playing really good
yeah,
serial killers. Like Evan Peters is great. That's the only reason why I'm interested in watching this
him
dark
and I are
Dahmer
like
series.
yeah, me
almost like we're
too.
like weeks apart, like in age. It's weird. I think of him
Who?
as a kid, and I'm like Evan Peters. He's
Really?
born like in
Hey,
like the
Evan
end of
Peters.
January.
And you're like, Arch, like.
He is like literally.
I used to
But
love him.
I still love him. I know.
he's
Yeah,
another brother
I
for me. He's another brother. I don't know what
When
it
he
is.
showed up on WandaVision, I lost my mind.
I haven't seen
I love him
WandaVision.
in everything he does. He's very talented, and that's what made me more intrigued about this series. But
I worry
yeah,
about his mental health because he's talked about it.
yeah,
Oh, I've been.
I-
What has he said?
He's such a good actor, but he loses himself in characters sometimes, and it does
Yeah.
affect him mentally.
Is he a method
and-
actor?
No, no, I've
No.
never heard of him being a method actor, but I've heard of him being as someone who I would, as someone who did theater, not an actor, so not even comparable. The thing about Evan Peters, and I agree with, is sometimes when you play a character for so long or so many characters in dark spaces or even light spaces, you do after a while start to take on some character traits, or
Mm,
you have to be weary of taking on those character traits. The idea that you're going to impact people with that character. So
yeah,
you have to live up to that afterwards or live with it afterwards. And if you look at his track record on American Horror Story, you can understand why that could be really difficult.
Isn't he
mentally
almost?
for
Isn't
somebody.
he always a psycho in that show?
Especially his cult season or his
Mm.
first season with Murder House, where he's a school. That's tough. That's tough to deal with. And he's been on that show for years. Thank you guys for joining us. If you want to support this podcast, you can go ahead and join our Patreon. We'd really appreciate that. You get merch, you get cool access to bonus content. I have a bonus episode coming soon. If you guys would love to hear more from us, you can join our Discord as well. Patreon does get extra access to the slasher chat, but you, as a normal Discord everyday person who has Discord free, could also join our Discord and be part of the conversation. It's a good time. Also, follow us on TikTok, Instagram, all our
All the
Insta-
social meds.
all the socials. The linky links are down below. And thank you guys on Twitch. We appreciate you. And thank you again to our patrons who are going to be at the end of this episode. Let us know in the comments, what are some taboo cannibal movies that you love?
What are some
your
taboos you love? What are taboos that are too much for
Yeah.
you?
What are too much for you?
You know what I don't like? I don't like it when they have close up of people eating.
Oh, I
It
love
bothers
that.
Like the mukbang stuff. Like
It's so
I
gross.
love it.
they did that in the invitation.
I
Thank you guys so much.
thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.